Welcome everyone to Real Talk with My Homies. I'm your host, Jacob Wardrip, licensed real estate agent with Homepage Realty. Today I'm joined by Steven Andrus. He's an Emmy-winning TV reporter turned sports bettor and full-time gambler. Steven hails from Philly, so go Birds, but now calls Louisville home. He has spent the last 5 years in the world of legalized sports betting content and fantasy football. He is currently on a 5-year streak in the black. So Steven, welcome in, and how are we today?
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's good. Just wrapped up another football season where we made a little money, so that's always nice to do with the NFL because it's so hard. But yeah, love Louisville. It's my home now, here with my wife and kids, and not a native, but a transplant, and glad to call it home for sure.
Yes, welcome to the Derby City. When did you move here officially?
So I was here for a 3-year stint the first time from 11 to 14.
Okay.
Was working at WDRB as a sports reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And then our career with my wife took us all over the country, different places. Pandemic made our jobs remote, and we decided to come back, gave us the opportunity. And, we always missed it. Every other place we lived was not like Louisville. So we decided to come back and put down our roots here. And
anything specific about Louisville that you liked or that you didn't see anywhere else?
So it's not too big. Traffic's not as bad. And people are just friendly here. I think we made a lot more friends here than any other city we've lived in, which is, I think, unique compared to those other cities because just at our age, right? Like you get to my age, I'm in my late 30s now, and it's harder to make new friends when you move to new cities, but we never had that problem here in Louisville for some reason. So I think just the people are really great here.
Yeah. So you got a history in broadcasting, TV, writing, all that good stuff. What's the short version or the long version of your history with broadcasting?
Sure. I went to school for it. I went to Syracuse, got a broadcasting degree with a dual major in IT, and always wanted to be a sports reporter or a sports anchor, maybe mix in some play-by-play. So
did you do anything fun play-by-play? Anything that of note?
Yeah, I did. I did some college basketball. Did a couple games for ESPN. Did an NIT game, which was fun because there was a 3-pointer at the buzzer to send it to overtime. And even though it was an NIT game, like it was a big deal for Penn State. So
it was a big deal for you too.
It was, yeah. It wound up being like the number 2 play on SportsCenter's top 10 that night. Yeah. And ironically, my Sixers knocked me out of the number 1 spot because like Andre Iguodala hit a 3 at the buzzer against the Lakers in LA. So otherwise, I would have had number 1 on SportsCenter. But
were we trusting the process at that point, or had that not started yet?
That was pre-process. That was stuck in the mid like 5 to 8 seed, never going anywhere. And then they tore it down and tried that. So yeah, it was that was like early part of my career. I spent 2 years in Eugene, Oregon. When you're trying to be a sports reporter anchor, you just go to whatever market you can and try to get to a bigger market. So was in Oregon for 2 years covering
Chip Kelly.
It was, yeah, first 2 years of Chip Kelly. So Rose Bowl national title when they lost to Cam Newton in Auburn. And then from there, I wound up here in Louisville, which again was perfect timing because first year here, it was the Anthony Davis UK national championship, beat Louisville in the Final Four. Year after that, Louisville gets their revenge. They win the national title. Year after that, they play each other in the Sweet 16 in Indianapolis with Russ Smith and Peyton Siva and the Harrison twins for UK. So it was just amazing timing to come here and experience it and see this city and its sports fans at like full throat, full passion, full rivalry. It was a lot of fun. So that's kind of like where my career started. Went and worked for the Colts for 2 years as their in-team reporter. Went and did some freelance stuff down in Miami after that. Did a year on the PGA Tour doing content for them. So was all over the place, but more transition now to the digital side of sports content.
Gotcha. All right, got to pay the bills real quick.
Yeah.
At Cardinal Moving, a local moving company since 2014 with over 3,000 Google reviews, they specialize in making your move as smooth and stress-free as possible. Their team of clean-cut and professional movers is dedicated to handling your belongings with the utmost care and efficiency. Visit their website, cardinalmoving.com, or give them a call at 502-599-2661 to get a free quote.
Hey, by the way,
All right.
I told you I've moved all over the country, and I've used a lot of moving companies. I've actually used Cardinal Moving.
Nice. All right, there we go.
By far the best moving company I've ever used. Like the other ones, moving from like Louisville to Miami and Miami to Philadelphia. I swear, like I've told everybody, and this I didn't know he was going to get Cardinal Moving as a sponsor. I had no idea they're a sponsor. I just wanted to say I love Cardinal Moving.
Yes, they are, and I've used them personally. I used them personally before the ads, and I will continue to use them.
I used them twice here already since I've been here.
I think I've used them I think I've used them twice as well, actually. So I moved myself one time. That was dumb. That was really dumb. And
yeah,
here's a public service announcement for anyone in their mid-30s thinking about moving. Your friends don't want to help you move. And it doesn't matter if you give them pizza and beer. They don't care. It's not the equivalent for a broken back for the next month and a half. It's not a one in, one out situation there.
yeah. That's like the last thing I want to ask my friends and the last thing I want to say yes to when they ask me.
I'd rather ask for money from my friends than ask them to help me move.
I know.
All right, gambling journey and history. How did we get started in the gambling world? I'm assuming just as a casual, how do we get to where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been betting on sports since I was in college in my dorm room in Syracuse, and for a long time was doing it the wrong way, thinking that my knowledge of sports and my opinion mattered, and lost a lot of money over the years betting that way.
I think all of us are in that headspace right now.
Yeah, I think that's the first mistake people make, is that they think because they're a huge sports fan and they consume sports on a day-to-day basis that they can win some bets, right? And you may from time to time, but over the long term, you need to think of it more from a different perspective than just a sports fan. So, I've been betting the wrong way from college through the pandemic. And then the pandemic happened and had some extra time, obviously. We're all going stir crazy in our house. And I was in Philadelphia at the time, and we were on lockdown and wearing masks everywhere. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to try and do this the right way. And golf was the first sport back because you could naturally social distance.
It was outside. It was an easy,
Then the NBA bubble happened, and then, baseball had their shortened season. It's just, obviously, kids are going to look at us like we have 5 heads when they tell us about sports during the pandemic.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
At that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to find some people that are good at betting online, listen to them, learn from them, kind of just like figure out how to do this through osmosis and just try it and try to deploy from that point on good practices of, starting a bankroll and how to properly manage that bankroll and what strategies to use when picking bets and see what happens, right? So I started with $200. Just some, my wife and I, we have a line item on our monthly budget for fun money. So I took 1 month of fun money, $200, and decided, let's see what we can do with this. And I'm fortunate enough to say, through this process, have made like mid 5 figures since
That's
then.
incredible.
So
it's a starting salary for somebody.
Yeah. So listen, I'm never going to claim to be a professional bettor. I'm certainly a profitable bettor. I'm proud to say that. I aspire to be a professional bettor.
At what level do you become a professional gambler? What is your definition of when do you think you hit that mark?
When you don't have another job, and betting's your job.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who that is their only job. There's a famous bettor from Kentucky named Billy Walters, who was the first person ever to get the IRS to allow him to put professional bettor on when he filed his taxes.
Yeah.
That's a professional bettor. So that's certainly the hope. You grow the bankroll steadily over years to get to that point, hopefully. But in the meantime, I'm glad to have that money on the side. It's like an extra stream of revenue where I can have some fun with it. I've taken a chunk of it and put it into like my kids' college fund. And to me, it's like a side hustle. It's like a freelance job I have on the side.
We had talked on the phone before, and I know you had said, but I want you to say on here the different. You gamble very differently than I do.
Okay.
So I gamble on everything, and I lose everything except for NFL, which I know you said is like one of the hardest ones to win. But actually, that's where I have my most success. And then at blackjack, I do pretty well at blackjack normally. What games do you play? What games do you find you're most successful at?
There's probably 3 specialties I have. NFL is one of them. Golf betting is the sport that I've been most profitable in, believe it or not. And futures. I kind of use that across the board. I
want to get into some of the futures later when we get to another. I want to get into that because that's always interesting to me.
Those are the 3 that kind of stand out to me. I think with futures, the reason I tend to have an eye for it is that to win an award or to win a championship, you're talking about a large sample of games.
Yeah.
Whereas on a game-to-game basis in the NBA or the NHL or whatever sport, there's a inherent variance game to game, no matter what sport you're talking about. I mean, we just had a Super Bowl where the Eagles absolutely kicked the crap out of the Chiefs. Is that going to happen every time if they play 100 times? Probably not. I mean, they couldn't block worth a damn, so maybe.
Yeah. May happen more often than we thought.
But the point is, like, the smartest, richest bettors in the world basically made that a coin flip game. I mean, you could get $1 million down the Super Bowl if you wanted to. The smartest people in betting on earth made that a 1-point spread. So, but it just so happens that on that day, the variance was such where there was a much bigger outcome or much bigger margin of victory than that. So that's really the thing when it comes to futures betting. You get a bigger sample, so it takes out some of that variance. So that is attractive to me, where I'm not having to worry about like an injury report or something I don't know on an individual game.
Yeah, I'd say the only big issue with the futures is kind of what you just said. You just alluded to with the injuries. You know, we were talking about before we went on. Ohtani won an MVP. He goes down in June with an ACL. God, I hope that doesn't happen. I really hope I didn't just talk that into existence. But
you got any wood you can knock?
I know, right? Somewhere we'll find something. I think this is granted, but we'll take if he goes down, I mean, any future is gone.
Well, that's probably the first thing I would say with futures to be weary of is when you're talking this far in advance. I mean, we're recording here in February and the World Series is in freaking October.
Yeah.
You should be weary of betting favorites at the top of the board because they are potentially fragile. And if a big player goes down, that could completely change the price. Or if they have a slump in the season, you can get a better price. So, I'm a Phillies fan. I grew up in Philadelphia. I'm a huge Phillies baseball fan.
That's got to be frustrating.
Yes.
That team is loaded.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pile on, but
no.
I mean, I'm jealous of, and I'm a Dodgers fan. I have an awesome roster, but I'm jealous of the Phillies roster. That's the only other roster that I would potentially want if I was a sports fan in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, we had the pitching, you would think, right? But yeah, my worst nightmare last year was losing to the Mets in the playoffs. Like literally the worst possible outcome that could happen. But a few years ago, before they kind of started coming on here and people knew how good they were, that breakout year where Bryce Harper has the homer to send them to the World Series against the Padres, middle of that season, they were doing really well. And they were still 50-1 to go to the World Series.
That's wild.
Despite having, 2 pitchers at the top of the rotation who were among the 8 best in baseball. So little nuances like that, if you're following along, you can find a good price. I'm not saying it's going to win every time.
There's a lot of value there.
And the Phillies didn't win the World Series that year. They lost the Astros. But I had a 50-1 ticket, and by the time they got to the World Series, well, now I can further monetize that ticket because it's closer to a pick 'em once you get to the World Series versus when I made that bet, it's 50-1. So you almost think of it like a stock, right? Now, sports betting futures will go to zero a hell of a lot more often than a stock, right?
Very quickly.
But if you think about it in terms of getting in early on a position and trying later on to monetize that, that's one way to look at betting, right? When you're talking about futures. So once they got to that point later in the season, even though they didn't win the World Series, I still made thousands of dollars off of that ticket because at that point I was able to bet the other side and decide how much I wanted to hedge on the other side. And that's if you're starting out in betting and you find yourself in a position like that with a ticket in a really great spot, that's one of the best ways to build your bankroll very quickly.
I got a question for you about hedging. I've noticed this now, like, because I use FanDuel. No free ads, but I use FanDuel. And they've now got that. They're one of probably again, I don't know all the apps, but they've got that cash out option now, where if you've got a nice size payout, they'll offer you a cash out. That's almost essentially your hedge now. Have you looked at that? Have you seen any difference in, is the cash out essentially the same profit as a hedge, or is it still better to hedge?
You should never use the cash out option ever.
I use cash out all the time.
Yeah, it's hedging is always going to be more profitable than the cash out option. There's only one scenario where I can think of where you should consider the cash out option, and that's when it's a cash out for an award, where at that point you basically know that this guy's a zero to win that award, because we're not talking about games and outcomes at that point. We're talking about humans and voting, right? Yeah. So, I had Sam Darnold 400-1 to win MVP last year. And at a certain point, it became very clear to me that he's been great, but he's not going to win MVP. But at that point, the price had gone from 400 to 1 down to like 20 to 1. And there was a cash out option. That's really the one caveat with the cash out option where I think I would use it, because like he's not going to win MVP. It's going to be Lamar or it's going to be Josh Allen at that point. That's just the way the humans in the voting works. So that's a good place to use the cash out option. Any other situation, championship future, etc., hedging, if you do the math on it, is going to give you more money than taking the cash out option.
Yeah, that's what I was curious, because I'm not betting with payouts where, it's going to change anything besides.
Yeah. Now listen, if you have like a lottery ticket situation where you put like, $10 on something and the cash out is like 40 grand.
Yeah.
And the
That's kind of more what I'm
100 grand. Like, listen, like I'm not going to blame anybody who's just starting out betting or a novice bettor or a recreational bettor. Not all of us can go and take out 50 grand to do the proper hedge at that point, right? Yeah. But if we're talking like a couple thousand here and there, I don't want to sacrifice $1,000 because it's easier to hit the cash out button if I can get the money and bet the other side of it.
I'm thinking of a specific situation. It was a Kentucky game. Who'd they play? I can't remember who they played. It was a Kentucky basketball game, and I'm just picking numbers out of thin air for conversation, but this was about what the percentage was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a $25 bet to win 49 or something. And the early cash, like we got towards the end of the game and there was still a chance that the other team, Hail Mary type of situation, they could still win. We'll say 49 even was the payout. They were offering me a cash out of like 48. And I was like, I'm taking that. Like I'm going to bet $1 of my own money that this is going to hit. Like I will make sure that I'm taking my $48 profit. Like I don't care enough about $1 to let this ride out where a potential big play and a Hail Mary, I lose it all. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking of from a cash out standpoint.
The majority of cash outs though,
that's right.
Exactly. Like at that point you're basically in the end game, right? And it might be like one play where the way I like to think about it is if you're getting offered a cash out at that point, is there a chance to middle it? Do you know what middling is?
Mm-mm.
So, all right, let's go back to your Kentucky football example.
Yeah.
Let's say you bet Kentucky -6.5 before the game.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they're up by 14 somewhere in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the live spread is, plus 10.5. Instead of just sacrificing some of your winnings on the money line of the opponent or whatnot, if you have -6.5 pregame, maybe you can bet the other team like plus 10.5 or plus 11.5 during the game. So now if it lands between 7 and 10, you win both bets. Versus if you were to just, go back and do plus 6.5 at a better price when you bet -6.5 pregame, well, now you're just sacrificing winnings no matter what.
Yeah.
If you can get that live spread bigger on the other side and maybe middle that, well, that to me is the better way to go because, yes, it might not middle, but you're still going to get a percentage of your original payout and potentially the other bet paid out as well.
That's interesting. Your bankroll. I know you said you started obviously very small relative to what you do now. I think that's a fair assessment. You said a couple $100. What's your approach to bankroll management and avoiding, reckless bets, things like that?
Yeah. So I think step one is creating a bank account just for betting.
Okay.
Said at the beginning of the pod, I'm married. I got 2 kids. We have our normal monthly bills like any other family.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing the betting money coming in and out of that account would be really convoluted, right? So the first step is opening a separate checking account, doing all your betting through that one account. So it's just off to the side. Step 2 is understanding what the proper amount is to bet if you're going to manage that bankroll. And typically the best way to think about this is, percentage of your bankroll per bet. So I really never go more than 2% of my bankroll for any bet. And that's when I feel really confident about it. In most cases, if it's game by game, I'm only betting 1% of my bankroll per bet. That's really the best way to go about it. And then that also gives you the opportunity so that if you get into a situation where you can really monetize a ticket, you still have enough in that bank where you need a bigger amount down the road to lock in some winnings. You have that available in your bankroll. If you're betting like 10% of your bankroll, well, then all it takes is to go minus 10 units and your bankroll's done.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that I learned from professional bettors who do content over the years. They all say about the same thing. Like it really should be around a 1%.
That's what I've heard a lot too, is 1% of the bankroll it should be your unit. And obviously
So
as it grows, your unit grows.
And that doesn't sound like much, right? Like if say you want to set aside $5,000, say you want to set aside, let's just say $1,000 to bet. I mean, that's $10 per bet. It's not a lot.
No.
So, but that's how
we're trying to play the long game.
Exactly.
To be, I guess, not professional, but to be full-time, as a consistent earner.
Yeah, to give yourself a shot.
You got to play the long game.
And the other thing too is like, parlays are a special caveat here too. I mean, first thing I'll say is there's a reason why every commercial, every piece of content you see from a sports book, when you open the sports book, there are parlays offered to you.
Yep. Before every football game, they do a parlay for you.
Every promo is an odds boost for a parlay. Like it's there. There's a reason for that. And sports books are in business to make money.
Yep.
And the vast majority of their revenue comes from parlays and same game parlays. So just keep that in mind. So when I say 1% of your bankroll per bet, that's not for parlays. So if I have a $5,000 bankroll and I'm putting $50 on each bet for a game or a spread, I'm not doing that for parlays. I might only put like $10 on it.
Yeah.
Like a fraction of what I do for a normal game. So just keep that caveat in mind.
Of course. Biggest wins, biggest losses. This I do not know your answers to.
Okay.
Let's go first, most memorable win.
It was in golf.
Doesn't have to be the biggest, the most memorable.
Yeah, it was in golf. I was out in Las Vegas with my buddies, which is always fun. And to that point in the weekend, I was like, just down like $800, just blackjack and craps, whatever. So it was looking like a losing weekend and getting ready to come home, but it was still fun to see the buddies. But I was in there. We went on a weekday. So I left on a Thursday. So before I left, I could get my golf bets in for the week at the book.
Yeah.
I usually, bet my golf online, but I was in Vegas at the time, so I had to go in person.
Yeah, in Rome.
Get my tickets. So I'm at Circa, which is, my favorite sports book in Vegas.
Beautiful.
Yes, just the best sports book in Vegas. And Jeff Benson over there who runs the books, class guy. So I'm putting my bets in. It's the 3M Open, like really small PGA Tour event. Nobody, casual fan doesn't care about it. I handicapped it as usual, and I go up to the window, and it's just like this really sweet, like 75-year-old man writing my tickets. I'm going down, and the way I bet golf is I have like a list of guys that I'll bet, and if any one of them wins, I'll win like 24 units. So I'm starting at the top. I'm like the shortest odds, and then the last guy on my list is going to be the long shot, right? So I get all the way down to my last pick, and it's the long shot. And I tell him what I want to bet, and he's like, hey, you're at like $140. Do you want to just add $10 on this last guy? And I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah, it's just money.
And 130 to 1, that adds up pretty quick.
Very fast, yeah.
And sure enough, like I get home that weekend, and the 130 to 1 shot that sweet old man told me to put an extra $10, I won like $3,500 on that golf bet, which was like so fun. And whoever that guy is out, if he's still around out in Vegas,
watching.
Thank you for telling me to put an extra few bucks on that to just round it up at the end. So
yeah. Is that your biggest win?
No, it wasn't my biggest win. It was certainly the most memorable.
Yeah.
Biggest wins were Super Bowl futures. I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl future. Bet
Brady.
Yeah, I bet that like a day before Brady signed with them.
Did you catch it, like not inside info, but did you kind of read the tea leaves that it looked like
exactly.
they end up there?
Yeah, and most of the books had already moved, but there was one left that still had 50 to 1 up on the Bucks. Most of the other books had already cut it down to 25, but there's one book up that still had 50 to 1. And at that point, like every other team had already picked their quarterback, and it was either I think it might have been the Chargers or the Bucks at that point. I think it was pre-Justin Herbert. And I'm like, he's not going to Mahomes' division.
Yeah.
He's not signing up to have to beat Mahomes to get a home playoff game. That doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that worked out. He won the Super Bowl 50-1. That was really early on. So that $5,000 went a long way early on in my betting life.
I'm sure.
One of the biggest losses just happened, actually.
The Chiefs.
Yeah, I had futures tickets, honestly. It wasn't a big loss in terms of, money I bet straight out of my bankroll and they lose. It was just, potential winnings that were lost.
That's what I told you before. I've never bet money where I would lose sleep if I lost.
Yeah.
I've never lost a wink of sleep for the money I lost, but I've lost hours of sleep. And if my wife is listening to this, I'm sorry. I've lost hours of sleep based on the money I could have won that I didn't win.
Yeah.
That's when I lose sleep, is because I'm a big parlay guy. Unfortunately, I fall victim to the trap.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to get too far ahead. Futures. This is going out right around NCAA tournament time.
Yeah.
What do you have futures wise on the NCAA tournament? I think this will go out probably either the Monday or Tuesday of March Madness. So you've got the full 68 in front of you right now.
Yeah. I think I don't see the bracket as we record right now. And
Yeah. This is we do not know what the bracket is. We don't know the number 1 seeds. This is I'll timestamp it. It's February 14th, 2025.
Yeah. So
we either look like geniuses or idiots to this.
So that's one thing that I've changed in my betting over recent years. I used to be a little heavier in college basketball futures than I have been this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just hard when you don't know the bracket, right? Yeah. Like there have been too many times the past couple of years where I wind up with a good position on 2 futures and they wind up in the same region, and now I have no chance at both of them getting to the top 4.
Yeah,
so that's tough. But with that being said, there's 2 teams that stood out to me. St. John's was 1 at price. I mean, I bet them at 11-1. I think there's
this is to reach the Final Four, correct?
Yeah, to reach the Final Four, not win the title.
I was about to say that's a horrible bet. 11-1 to win the title is.
Yeah, no,
don't touch that. I'm not a professional, but I know that's
multiply that by 4 if you want a fair title price. But I think people around these parts know when Rick Pitino has a roster that he likes and a roster that he's put together, how tough they are in an NCAA tournament setting when teams haven't seen them all year. And in particular,
he's very good at winning one game.
Yeah,
when he has to.
That it took until 2014 for him to lose in the Sweet 16 because that 2-day turnaround. Well, not sorry. Yeah. So it took till 2014. UK, that Harrison twin team, was the first team to ever beat Rick Pitino in the Sweet 16. Because once you get to that point, Pitino's got that extra time to prepare for you, and you don't have enough time to prepare for like the press and all the nuances of the defense that he puts together. So Pitino is just an all-time good tournament coach. So, and again, like that 1-day turnaround from first round to second round is really tough when you're going up against Rick Pitino. So where this St. John's team is a team that I have concerns about offensively, I think the floor in a single elimination tournament setting is high for them because their defense is so good where they can have an off shooting night and maybe still survive.
Yeah.
So that's the first. The second one is Florida. They went down to Auburn. They beat Auburn on the road. Very impressive. All the talk and attention, both from a casual college basketball fan perspective and also sports betting perspective, has been all about Auburn and Duke, and rightfully so. But there's still room for 2 other teams to come out of the other regions. And Florida has really impressed me. I mean, if you follow college basketball and even college basketball betting a little bit, you've probably heard over and over again that the national champion for like 2 decades straight has been somebody who's finished the season ranked top 25 in both offensive and defensive efficiency by KenPom. Florida clearly fits that. As we record here, they're top 10 in both.
Yeah.
They're top 5 in offense. So I think there's a situation. I think they've played well enough to this point to not be in Duke and Auburn's region. where they're not going to have to worry about them till the Final Four, I think they're really good.
What about the local guys, Louisville and Kentucky? What's the short version of them?
It's the same story second year in a row for Kentucky. They can't play defense. I mean, that's a problem for them. I mean, they can shoot the lights out, but we saw what happens when you get into the tournament. You have an off shooting night, or you can't play defense. You can get bounced by a 15th seed. So that's my concern with Kentucky. I would need to see more between now and Selection Sunday to feel like they're a legitimate Final Four team.
Yeah.
Louisville's a great story, but my concern is that we've seen a lot of cases in recent years where the surprise team, the upstart team gets to the tournament and then they get bounced because they just don't have quite the talent
They don't have the
level
horses
yet. So, I mean, Pat Kelsey should be National Coach of the Year, in my opinion. I mean, nobody's done a better job than him with the just dredge that was left by Kenny Payne. And they should be a pretty high seed. I mean, I think they're probably a 5 seed as a record, so I think maybe a 6 seed at worst if things go according to plan the rest of the way. I also think the ACC really stinks this year.
Yeah.
I don't think this conference is really preparing them for what they're going to face in the tournament other than when they play Duke. So
did you hear the who was it? Carl Ravitch the other night talking about the SEC?
What do you say?
Obviously, it was a month ago when you're listening to this, but he said as of like January 4th, the SEC, once conference play started in the SEC, the SEC teams are 82 and 82.
Yeah. Well, yeah, bud. That's usually what happens.
And he said it with such conviction too. It was like as much credit as they get.
Carl, no. Yes.
All right, we're getting close to the time, so let's run through some stuff real quick.
Sure.
I want some little one hitters. These are things I do. You can tell me how I'm not betting responsibly.
Okay.
NFL TD parlays. I'm addicted to those.
Okay.
And I try to keep it to 4 people.
From the same game?
No, I do it across the board.
Okay.
So, I would say, and I did look at value. I actually do have like some of a system in my head where one of the guys scoring, and you may tell me my system is stupid. But like Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown was like minus 260 middle of the season. There's no value there to add him in my opinion, because it's minus 260. If he doesn't score, the bet's dead. You're looking at me like that might be dumb.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't look at the word value in terms of
I'm thinking of value.
Payout.
Yeah, that's the way I'm referencing it.
Yeah.
Value towards the cumulative.
Because I would argue that, I mean, if you remember Christian McCaffrey from a couple of years ago when he was scoring
He scored like 11 straight games or something.
He was being priced in like the minus 300s.
Yeah.
So
I didn't touch him either during that time.
Well, if you bet him every week, you would have won more.
True.
And you would have wound up profitable if you bet him every week of the season.
I profit chase.
So that's
I payout chase.
I don't blame you if you're going for a big payout. I don't blame you for putting not putting a favorite in your parlay. I would just go back to, if it was me, this is like a no more than a quarter unit bet.
Yeah.
And
most of the time I'll do it again. I use FanDuel. Most of the time I'll do it where it's the no sweat bet where I can.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I can do that. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't hit it, it's free money.
I'm glad you brought up the no sweat bet.
It's gambler math, right?
Yeah, because everybody should bet the no sweat bets and take your shot at a lottery ticket. I do it every week. And I told you I had a lot to gain if the Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's because every time I lost a no sweat bet, I took the bonus bets and put it on the Super Bowl exacta that I had the most belief in.
Mm-hmm.
I had 120. Yeah, I stood to make 125 units if the Chiefs beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And that was mostly because all of that was from bonus bets, from failed no sweat bet same game parlays that I just kept adding to my position as the year went on.
Yeah.
And even though the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl, I still was able to hedge out of that and make like a quarter of those potential units. So yeah, if they're going to give you 2 bites at the apple potentially here at a sports book, you absolutely should be taking your shot at some huge payout.
Yeah.
And just putting it on some future position when you get the bonus bets that you have confidence in, that obviously has less variance than a single game outcome.
Yeah, I was getting during the middle of NFL season, I was getting like upwards of $100 bonus bets that I could place because of just the volume that I was dealing at that
I
time.
miss those. I only get 10 now.
As I'm down to 10. I'm down to 10 now as well. It went from 100 to 25.
Yeah.
And then it went from 25. Now it's down to 10. But yeah, in the middle of the season, I was getting $100 bets, and like, I'm.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. The sportsbooks profile their customers.
Oh, absolutely.
They know you and I are what they call bonus hunters.
I will tell you right now. I pulled the stats. I pulled my stats because I only used FanDuel. Again, this sounds like a FanDuel. If you're watching, give me a free.
Well, I'm going to stop you right there because that's something else I want people to know, and I hope you think about it too. You really should be using multiple sportsbooks.
Yeah, I only use FanDuel just because I liked it under one umbrella. I can monitor everything. I still have. I've never used. I think the only two I've ever even actually used in my life are DraftKings and FanDuel. So like all the bonus bets through all the other entities, never touched them. Don't have an account with them. Prize Picks, Bet365, BetMGM, all those.
I've never used. Well, I think you should consider it.
Oh, I am. They're in the back of my mind. Like if I ever,
because there are websites where you can, instead of having to flip between each sportsbook on your phone to shop for the best price, there are websites that just aggregate it for you. And I'll just use an analogy. Like, I wish I could use a real estate analogy, but it's apples and oranges. It won't work. Like, there's no two of the same house, right? Like, there's always some difference. But let's use a car analogy. You know the car that you want, and you know the make, you know the model, you know the year, and 3 different places have this car available to you. Are you just going to go to the first one, or are you going to shop for the best price? If it's the same car at each of the 3 places,
absolutely,
you got to shop for the price. So like the same philosophy should apply to sports betting. Like buying a car, Black Friday sale, whatever. Find the best price whenever you can, because that's just going to increase your chances over the long term of increasing your potential payouts.
Yeah.
That's probably the number one sports betting strategy that I tell people. And I think it's the easiest one if you just have the accounts open. And if you open the other accounts, you're going to get great sign-up bonuses.
Exactly. And that's kind of been my rationale, is to not use multiple, is like I can save. Like they're going to have those sign-up bonuses next year. They're going to have them the year after that. If I don't use them yet, then I can use them later if I want to. And again, it makes sense up here, but I understand what you're saying too.
Yeah.
I rarely bet the under. Rarely ever.
Why?
I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like score. I don't like cheering against scoring. That's not fun to me.
I've interviewed a guy named Ed Miller, who came up with a lot of the technology behind live betting and whatnot. And what he tells me is that their live betting pricing is skewed more towards outcomes people want. People rarely bet on boring outcomes.
Yep.
Right? They want more points. They want a comeback. They want a last-minute touchdown. So inherently, if they're skewing the pricing towards those because they know that's where the public interest is, then inherently the value is on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. And the other thing with over-unders too, if you're betting overs, listen, if you want to bet overs, it's a free country. What I will tell you is try to bet them when the odds first come out. Because if it's like a primetime NFL game on Sunday Night Football where you're getting a huge amount of money bet on that game, the line tends to move towards the over. So if you're betting it closer to kickoff, you're getting a worse number most likely than you got when it first opened. So overs early, unders late, closer to kickoff or tip-off.
I very rarely bet the underdog to cover.
Why?
I can't rationalize it in my head. I can't rationalize it in my head that such and such team is not going to lose by less than 7. And I'm talking, like I said, I primarily just bet NFL. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, if I think the Raiders are going to cover against the Cardinals, I just won't bet it. I just don't even think that, then I'll just go put, another unit on.
It was a good year for that. It was a good year for that. But I will tell you, this was an historic year for NFL favorites. It was probably the best year to bet on favorites in the NFL.
It's all come to fruition. I'm a front runner.
It seemed like no matter how big of a favorite some of the books made some of these teams, it didn't matter. They covered anyway.
Yeah.
And it's very rare. Like that doesn't happen very often.
I would say if you go through my betting history, probably 90% of the bets I made were either underdog money lines or the favorite covering.
You rarely bet the underdog to cover.
Very rarely.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, for me, when I hear this, my reaction is,
you can be candid. You don't have to hold back.
Yeah, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but like I think
I'm aware that I'm a dumb gambler. Like this is not a. I think I'm gonna be like the next Billy Walters. Like I am a dumb gambler. I freely admit that.
But if you're betting responsibly, fine.
Yeah, it's always responsibly. It's just sometimes dumb.
I think painting with a broad brush in betting, or using trends is a bad idea.
Yep.
I think you should be handicapping each game with what's presented in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're betting a Kentucky basketball game, then you should be looking at, okay, how big of a favorite or underdog were they the last few games? And is the spread that they have for this game in line with that? Is it an overreaction to what we saw the past couple of games because they actually played well? They just had a bad shooting night. So maybe there is some value on one side or the other for this one based on an overreaction in recent games. But to just blanket say I'm not betting the underdog to cover, I think is not the best idea.
Oh, I agree. It's a terrible idea. I'm not gonna debate that my idea is great. I'm very aware of it. I'm just telling you the things that I do that probably still won't change even after this conversation. I'm going to try and incorporate some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I will promise you that I will try.
Mm-hmm.
Will it end up happening and I hit place bet? That's a whole different conversation. All right. Last question, and we are getting out of here because we are beyond the bell, but this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah,
seriously. Thank you. All right. I'm excited to share my partnership with Senior Family Solutions and their Easy Equity Loan Program. If you've used this, then yeah, we're going to buy a lottery ticket after this. A game changer for sellers looking to maximize their home's value. This loan allows sellers to tap into their home's equity with no upfront costs, covering everything from contractor coordination to invoices, all paid at closing. Whether you're downsizing, upgrading, or simply preparing your home for top dollar, the program makes renovations seamless and stress-free. If you're ready to take this advantage or opportunity, give me a call or visit seniorfamilysolutions.com to get started. I am actually using this program for a listing that by the time this episode airs, it should be live. So I will have a lot more information on this if you follow me on socials. So with that being said, the Senior Family Solutions and their Easy Equity Loan Program question is, have you ever had ghost experiences? If so, explain.
I haven't.
Do you believe in ghosts? Or things you can't explain? Paranormal activity?
Not really.
No. All right, that's fine. That's fair. That's fair. Why not? I'm just curious.
Yeah, listen, here's what I'd say. I work in sports betting, right? And I talk about the range of outcomes a lot.
Yes.
Is it possible that in the range of outcomes something like this exists? Sure, possible.
Yep.
Is it a high percentage? Just one man's opinion. I say maybe a low percentage, but I certainly will leave room for it to be possible in the range of outcomes, and my little brain maybe can't comprehend it.
All right, I will say this because I'm just connecting all these dots right now. This just came to me. So you're telling me that when a player at MetLife Stadium trips on the 20-yard line, it's not Jimmy Hoffa?
No, it's their shitty turf provided by their cheap owner. That's what it is.
All right, Jimmy Hoffa, confirmed, not a ghost. All right. As usual, what is your question for the next guest?
Let's see. Okay. What's the story of when you made the most money at one time? Tell us the story of when you made the most money the one time.
Perfect.
At one time.
All right. That's it, man. It's been awesome, Steven. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate you. Until then, we will follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff you're supposed to say at the end.
Yeah. Best of luck.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.